You're listening to The Adventuring Party, talking about gaming the Irish way.
Welcome to the party. I'm Owen.
I'm Liam.
And I'm Scarr.
And today, we are here to talk about what happens when your campaign goes long. Specifically, when your campaign starts to stretch out in the middle distance, and you look back and you realise you've been playing for a year. What has happened? What's gone right? What's gone wrong? What strange things have occurred and arisen in us? Liam, any experience of a long-running campaign? What is your longest-running game?
Jeez, put me on the spot now.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of GMing, probably the current Enemy Within game I'm running now, the current Wolf game. Had a few games that ran for a while. You know, we ran Ars Magic for a bit and ran a few other RPGs, but they all kind of, you know, they ran for maybe 6 months and or maybe a year, then petered out. But the Wolf one is the one that seems to have had the most legs. I've played in, I don't know, more games than I can count. I have to sit here for about 10 minutes rattling them off. I've played in games that have gone on for quite a long time. You know, Pathfinder, that Dracula dossier, I think certainly went down for more than a year, even though it in itself was quite finite. But I guess when you're playing fortnightly, it's a little easier to hit that year target, you know?
Absolutely. Scarr?
My longest running game was a nearly 2.5 year game of Dark Heresy that I did as part of my social obligations in Galway. It wasn't 100% fixed cast. It was meant to have people who were able to drop in, drop out, but there was a mostly fixed cast for a good length of it. And yeah, they went up and down the XP scale on that one, and it was a hell of a thing to see. Start off, you know, marooned on a bombed out planet with like 3 bullets and a rusty knife, and they end up, you know, driving a tank off an airship as it explodes and destroys the last bloodthirster. It was an experience, and certainly actually I haven't played that many long campaigns, unless you count like online semi-freeform roleplay stuff. Most of the games I've been in haven't gone a huge distance. Well, it's gotten better recently, I guess, in that regard.
I think my longest is 7+ years for a Star Wars game, but I've had well over 10 campaigns run for 2 years or more. And that's apparently unusual. That's apparently people go, what? Like, how many of your games have you played for? Like, I would have at least, I've had 7 Pathfinder or 3.5 games go from 1 to 20. I've had 3 Star Wars games do a minimum of 2 years. I've had Dark Heresy do 3 or 4 years. I've played a lot of RPGs to an extended, I've won the Enemy Within, I've played in it or run it 4 times at this stage. So, you know, I've done the long campaign quite a lot. Like, it's a very different experience. That's one of the things about it. When you run a short run campaign, you've made your new character, you're often really excited to get to grips with a new system, to learn the system. There's a big frisson of energy, like any new relationship, and you're like, oh, awesome, this is going to be great. I'm going to get a chance to play this, and I'm really excited to play it. And then you're going to get a little bored. You're going to, oh man, I wonder if we could try something new, or, ooh, I feel like a different character, ooh, I feel like something else. And often people, you know, the game peters out and they start a new game. Would that be your kind of experience and stuff?
I think it's a little easier when you're running through pre-published material. Because if it's a campaign the GM's running, like if the GM's making it up, you know, they kind of, there's a lot of creative energy that has to go into that. Yeah. And maybe it's just I'm not that much of a creative type. You know, you got something broken, I'll fix it. But, you know, I'm not that good at coming up with material for a campaign. You know, so you put the effort in and you do bad guy of the week. You know, how does this string together? Does it string together? There's a lot of narrative effort that goes into that. Whereas, if you get pre-published material and it's of a reasonably good standard, then, even if you're using that as a template, you can make your own campaign with that. And I think that's a lot easier. I think for me, I've found keeping the wheels on for a game is easier with pre-published material.
Yeah.
But that could just be me. I don't know. Other people might have found the opposite,
About half our games would be fully pre-published, and some of them would be partly pre-published, if that makes sense, where you'd be, I'll steal this adventure, then I'll run my own one, and I'll run this bit, or I'll run this section. And it's just a way to, cut down on the prep, and cut down on the mental energy you're expending on the game. Because it's tough enough when you're running a game, especially at the moment, because we're playing over VTTs. Oh, the thought of having to think up the game, and then find all the assets and build it. Oof, it's too much. I'm much happier having pre-published stuff in the current setup where, there's a bunch of prep to do, but it's not, oh god, who's this guy? What's his name? Who's she? Oh.
I'm even finding it a bit of a sweat since we finished the Enemy Within campaign, since we finished Book 2, which was on, there was a Foundry module for it, the whole thing's in there, bump. Book 3 hasn't come out. The electronic copy's out. The physical books, they say they should be shipped now shortly in the next couple of weeks. And usually in Ireland we get them first because they're shipping from here. And the Middenheim thing is out on Foundry. So that's a bit of a help, but I'm even finding just the mental energy of running that is tougher, and there's more prep involved. I got very used to, it's all in here. I just have to read up on it and check things up again. So yeah, the idea of having to do everything to me is not quite terrifying, but certainly daunting.
The killer with that particular module, Power Behind the Throne, is that it's a sandbox.
Yeah.
So you have to have everything ready.
Yeah.
Because they could go anywhere.
You don't know who they're going to react with, or you don't know what event they're going to do.
So it's brutal from that point of view. It killed me when I was doing it. I'm actually going to send you those images I made up for it, because it was just I'm trying to find a good way to send a giant folder of 300 images. But anyway.
Zip them and put them on some kind of file yoke.
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's that's definitely part of it. I tend to find, when you're running along, you often got to pre-publish stuff because you just don't have that much energy.
I mean, some of it isn't kind of naturally formatted like that, so I think a little bit now. There's more D&D 5th ed stuff out there. That there's books, and they suggest you can play this book, and then you can move into this book, and then you can move into this book. When they first came out, it was kind of here's the Tiamat module. You do this one, you do this one. Even running through the two of them, they're not that long. You'd want to pad out a lot of stuff to actually get significant mileage out of it.
And don't forget to buy the Sword Coast Adventures guide to have plot hooks for every other location.
Exactly, and that's you'd have to work to get a significant long campaign out of it. But if you look at the Pathfinder adventure paths, they most of them go from level 1 to 16 or level 1 to 20 or level 1 to 12. I think most of them 1 to 20, and each book you're probably talking at least 10 sessions.
At least, yes. Depending on how much combat and depending on how quick you set up combat.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the good things about Foundry, is it runs quicker because you've already set up the combats.
Yeah.
And that's one of the good things about it. And if you're doing a dungeon crawl, it's a pain to set up the dungeon, but once you set up the dungeon, it's actually quite easy to run. Whereas if you're doing a weekly thing, the GM is like, oh, I drew out that map on my Chessex mat, roll it out, okay. Oh god, this is permanently stained now. Get me the spirit alcohol.
Yeah.
We've done all those shenanigans as well. So yeah, there's good and bad there. Cutting down on setup time for VTTs has been very valuable to actually progressing, because we were 18 months into Hell's Rebels and we weren't finished. And then the pandemic happened, and we switched over to the Extinction Curse, which is the Pathfinder 2nd Ed one. And we got that done in exactly 18 months, more or less.
Yeah. Is that weekly or fortnightly? Or
Weekly,
yeah.
And we were doing kind of 2.5, 3 hour sessions a night.
Yeah.
Which was a Tuesday, it was a Wednesday, then it was a Monday night, and we cracked through it. At the same time, the same GM was running the Abomination Vaults for us, and we actually ran all the Pathfinder Society modules that came out in The first year.
That's getting easier as well because they're dropping the release schedule. They're dropping back on them. I know some of the Pathfinder Society guys are sweating a bit because they're kind of going, will we have enough games to keep running, a game or two a month,
We ran out. So we went over to the Abomination Vaults and said, we'll run this. And it's great fun. Abomination Vaults is actually excellent. If someone was looking for one to get into a good dungeon crawling one, that's only 1 to 11, so it's only 3 books, Abom Vaults is very good. Very, very good. So
I do think there's something to be said there for, like, the flow of material in a campaign's lifetime. It's just like, if it's a planned out campaign, some GMs are going to get an awful lot of comfort from the idea that, sure, when they get to this level, I have this module and this module ready to go. I've generally found for my log campaigns, I rely an awful lot on randomness. Inspiration, tables, random page of Wikipedia comes up an awful lot for me. I find it's just like hit random page a few times, say, well, how can I combine these two together and then adapt them to my idiosyncratic techno-fantasy world?
I remember when you were a new GM, Shane, when you were brand new, you were running a convention game of 3.5, I think, and someone had written and formatted their module for their 3-hour block. But Shane had read the PHB very carefully and started rolling for random encounters in the overland table because they were travelling. And I think that game went 7 or 8 hours.
I can't remember the exact game, but it does sound like that might have happened.
And I was always like, he uses the random encounter rules? Really? And it was just, but that was one of the first things I heard about you. I was like, my God, are they okay with it? Yeah, the players loved it. And I said, well, that's grand then. That's not a problem.
Well, I mean, as long as your players are having fun, that's the main thing,
Yeah. That's it.
It's, I mean, like with any campaign, particularly in a long campaign, you're going to have to adapt and react because, like, the module will be written and assume your players are doing this. But, your players may do something differently, and I've had GMs who've just reacted really well to it. Like, I can't remember which Pathfinder module it is, but there's one where, you've explored this big area, it's a big dungeon, and you start out with stairs down the bottom, and it's all built into this big ice cliff, and then you come up, and then there's a big cavern kind of halfway up the cliff where there's lots of stuff, and kind of going, right, we're 17th level, we're all just going to fly up there and ignore this whole stairs thing, which looks like it's trapped like crazy, so let's just go around it. As a GM, you're going to have to react to that. Particularly, I guess this is probably where I'm going to go with we're probably going to move more. We've discussed kind of what the nature of the game is, but now I guess we probably want to talk about the benefits and the perils, So keeping the wheels on it, that's one thing where I'm getting is power is very difficult to quantify or to as a GM, it's easy. When everybody's low level, okay, some systems like D&D 5th Ed, the big hazard is somebody tries to crit and a PC is just dead. But when you get up towards higher levels, there's spells that are, depending on the system, there's spells that can just be like, bump, the entire party's wiped out.
Absolutely. And
how do you deal with that? And then there could be PCs who've developed totally broken combos.
Well, absolutely. The last thing I was just going to say about the planning thing is often a GM, if they decide, I'm doing this all myself, thinking of it all myself, real creativity. I'm a real GM. I'll write this whole thing myself, all about their characters. And they'll have a very strong start, and they'll probably have a decent idea for a finish. But the middle, the churn is what kills them. Because they're like, oh God, what are we doing? And the plot meanders, and there's a million side quests, and what are we doing? Oh God. I know at one stage I was playing the campaign and we were really meandering in the middle, and I said, right, no more side quests. I was like, what? I said, we have 17 quests we're working on. No more side quests until we finish some of these.
Yep.
We're picking up just subplot after subplot. We have to sit down and finish some of these and tighten things up a little bit because literally there's too many hanging threads here.
Making your to-do list a read-only file for a while.
Yeah. Your quest log is full. You may not accept any more quests. That was what it came down to.
That's one of those things because a lot of setups, the party will be the only group of people who can save the world, and that apparently translates to they're the only people who can go down to the shops for milk. So, yeah, it's something you have to keep in mind. It's just like, some groups are happy to meander. Some groups, the meander is the point. Like, we're getting together on our Monday night or whatever, and we're having our little meandering thing where we know that as a campaign goes on, you're going to get into the nice comfort of the characters. Like, some people can't get into the comfort of a character. It's just like, it's been 10 sessions. I should probably just have this person drive off a cliff and have a new person come in. But most people, a long campaign will really help them get comfortable with the character, and sometimes the roleplay will improve as they get get more into it, and sometimes they might just get set in their ways.
Sometimes as a GM, you're forced to meander anyway. I know certainly that the reschedule has really ramped up from Cubicle 7, but I do know that when Enemy Within, the first book, came out, my party flew through it. So then it was like, all right, well, we don't really have any content now. Let's just, I don't know. Okay, I'll string some stuff together. Run a couple of side things. And now it's the opposite problem. It's, the fourth book is out in PDF and the fifth book is coming out in, I think, Q4, I think. So it will be queued up. But hopefully that means as well, then those Foundry modules will be sitting there waiting for me.
Would have been luck. Moo Man's come on full time now. He's the guy who's developing the Wolfrup Foundry modules. He'll crack them out for us, I'm sure. Okay. So here's another thing. When you play a lot of games for a long period of time, you figure out something about most RPGs. Most RPGs are not designed to be played for longer than about 10 sessions. Most of them aren't. If you go, this has got rules from 1 to 20, and I'm like, you ever played at 20? You ever played 3.5 at 20? The difference in quality your character can be, like, at level 4 or 5, there can be a huge gulf in quality between, say, a fighter and a druid. At level 20, it's, okay, Mr. Fighter, you go sit over there, and I'll ask you to finish some stuff that I've CC'd to death. But, you're really not. What happened? Everyone died 3 times that round. Was that a problem? For the fighter, yeah, he couldn't come back from the dead. But the rest of us, not a problem. I had a couple of contingencies up, it's all good. Getting killed, whatever. I'm back. I'm back the next round.
Cast Earthquake and wiped out that whole army.
Yeah, or just like, what happens? I gate in those 2 solars I was talking to earlier, specifically for this thing. Alright lads, let's get to work, It's a completely different game. The game often break down really badly. They turn into ludicrous rocket tag, or characters become unhurtable, or it becomes really weird. And the solution presented by people when you bring this up who run short games is that doesn't happen in my game, and B, couldn't you be passive aggressive at your players until they stop? Neither of which are great solutions for me, but anyway.
I guess the level 20 being broken thing typically doesn't tend to be a long-term problem, because it's often only maybe the last session or the second to last session that it's really a problem, because it's usually like, okay, you hit level 20 and then you do the final little couple of bits in the last module. In which case it's nearly like engaging in that power fantasy where, just like in the movie where the hero gets that ability or gets the magic MacGuffin and then suddenly, plows through everything and saves the day. So I think that's a little bit of where that comes from. It's that people get that final sense of achievement of this is what we've been driving towards the whole time, which I don't know that people really are in the quest to get to 20. People like additional power and stuff, but I think really it's just the additional powers and abilities are just like a little bit of an achievement along the way. I don't know that anybody's like, oh man, I can't wait to get to 20.
I think the problem there is, like, the XP rules for a lot of games are designed to keep up a certain level of churn. The XP rules are probably designed to get people out of the low-level doldrums and into happy mid-level relatively quickly. But if you keep that pace up, then you just sort of steamroll into level 20 before you realize it. Like, I had a problem with my long-running Dark Heresy game where, because we kept playing every week, getting 200-300 XP, it just added up, and suddenly they were like, oh, we're at the end of the rank system. And it's just like, there's somewhere between 3 and 20 sessions left. I'm not sure I want to go through the process of making you go through Ascension or whatever. So maybe we should just keep you with the ranks you've got, and you can maybe actually buy, carousing plus 20 or whatever, Since it's on the sheet, you might as well give it a shot.
Yeah, I've had the same problem.
We did Ascension, Shane.
Yeah.
One of the other characters was playing. We were kind of equivalent-ish characters. Then we ascended. He became an Imperial Assassin and got 9 dodges every round that he couldn't fail. I got the ability that my grav chute always opened, rather than having a 1 in 10 chance of failing.
Oh, when he falls to his death, you'll be laughing.
He dodges the ground if he falls to his death.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he can just dodge the ground.
It actually, explicitly in the rules, you can dodge things that you can't normally dodge.
That's pretty stupid.
Yeah, it really is. There we went.
I guess I've had the same problem in my Warframe game. Well, you come up with solutions, like we just discussed as a group, and then basically went, okay, well, we're going to keep all the story awards. So, you talk to this MP, you save this NPC, you thwart this, you do this, and you get it, 15, 20, 50 point bonus depending on how big it is. We kept those as they were, but then the regular session XP, we were giving out 125 a session, and the players are probably way ahead of where the book expects them to be. In fact, reading through the next book, they're way ahead of that now, and they still have a whole book to go through. Now, that was partially because we started out with the starter stat, and then we went into Enemy Within, so the players are already a little bit more advanced, but I don't know that the module writers have enough. That maybe they ran it and went, this is how much XP people would have, but maybe they went through a little bit faster than the average group will. I think you need to bear in mind when you're doing those long games how they go. Like, we're now giving out 60 XP a session, and the advancement has slowed down quite a bit. They're still advancing and particularly interacting with all those story elements, but it's now probably not going to be as gigantic a problem when we get to book 5 as it would otherwise be if we kept going with the regular advancement. But that's something in any long running game that you need to kind of keep an eye on. Like, a lot of the new D&D 5 stuff now is just going, yeah, whatever, XP, you guys should be level 5 when you get to this point. I mean, that's one way. It's one way of doing it.
Yeah, it is. And like a milestone, there's nothing wrong with kind of milestone leveling. Going, you should be 5th for this one, you should be 6th for this bit. If you've actually got good encounter building techniques, you can definitely go, like in Pathfinder 2nd Ed, it goes, you should be 7th level in this area. And you go, should we be? And like, yeah, because most of the monsters are level 6 or 7. There's a couple of 8s, there's 1 9. If you're a level up, Grant, that's fine. If you're a level down, you're in trouble.
I think with most systems as well, particularly more combat orientated ones, your Pathfinders, your D&Ds, there's more to it than just level as well, though. Like a little less so, certainly D&D 5th Ed, I don't think. I mean, okay, a magic weapon, great. Otherwise, what's equipment for? Nothing really. There's no major swingy equipment. Pathfinder 3.5, absolutely. If you weren't on that well per level table and you didn't have all the kit, you were dead. And certainly with Pathfinder 2nd Ed, if you don't have your striking weapon by a certain level, you're really falling behind, Oh,
absolutely. Like, it's quite strict. It's like, no, they need this. This is not optional. This is not, to be nice to. No. The runes are to be nice. The fundamental ones you need.
So I think you need to, if you're running a long-run campaign, you need to nearly take a look at your PCs every few levels, and if you are running particularly, if you run kind of soft and it's mostly bit story, and you're not really really pushing the PCs to fight the max of what they can. If you're making an encounter and you're going, okay, well, this is a CR5 encounter or a CR6 encounter, that's fine. But if you're pushing them for 2 levels or 3 levels above what they should be fighting, like really maximizing them, so it's a skin in the teeth fight, you got to be making sure your PCs have what's expected of them at that level. So it's like, do a little audit. Again, with the VTTs, that's a lot easier because you just click on their sheet and you can see it. But, it could be a question when we do get to start gaming in person, that you go, would you mind leaving your sheets with me this session so I can take a look what you have? I just want to take a look through the PCs and make sure, and maybe, the next couple of dungeons that come across, you might find that sword that you've been looking for that you don't have,
Yeah. But I've definitely had the experience of being 20 sessions into a game and the combat's irretrievably broken, that the players stomp everything, and to design custom bad guys to stand up to them, you have to design totally degenerate stuff as well, which just leads to a cycle of degeneracy where they go, okay, so this guy can tank, this much damage coming in, which is equivalent to me firing a cannon shell at him.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm going to have to upgun my damage a bit further. So you get into cycles of degeneracy, which then necessitates you either going in and making a bunch of house rules to try and rebalance things, which is difficult and requires a certain amount of design skill, or kind of hand-waving the combat, or accepting that none of the combats are going to be challenging. And do you still run them? Do you still bother? Do you go, okay, well, let's just breeze through some of these. This guy's not a threat. This guy is not a threat. Oh, God, I have to do something about this. And it can be very frustrating as a GM and as a player when the mechanical bit of the combat is no longer at all challenging or fun. The GM feels like, why am I running this? I'm literally putting up straw man for people to just walk in and go, yep, dead, you know, and combat can be very important in some games as both kind of a way for the GM to rest for a bit in some one way if they're tired out by talking, being all the NPCs, doing all the voices and everything. It's like, oh God, combat now for a bit and push stuff around. And when you don't have that option, it can be tough, and particularly if you're writing your own stuff, you sometimes throw in a combat because you go, oh God, what we do? I've got about an hour of material here. What we do? I'll throw in 2 combats. Grant, that's the evening session prep done. And when the combats are desperately unsatisfying and hard to do, you're like, oh, come on. It's like, let's go with 3 hours of plot now. Ugh. And that can be tough. That can be very tough.
My experience, just put a shop in their way and that'll chew up half a session.
We've been talking an awful lot about the difficulties raised by a long campaign. Maybe before we finish up, we should maybe talk about the advantages. Like what happens in a long campaign that maybe you don't get the same experience in a shorter one. What happens to the 50 session campaign that doesn't happen at 20?
You get comfortable in your character. That's one of the things. You really know this is what my character would do. And people get to know it. So it's not a surprise. It's not your character being, aha, I'm secretly evil. It's, no, he's always been this way. And you get to do kind of in-jokes and callbacks, which are always kind of fun, where, yeah, this character has done this sort of thing before. That's nice. You get a long story where you saw the beginning, you saw the middle, and now you're at the end. And that's satisfying. You had a big arc, you felt like, yeah, I went from zero to hero. Or we did this huge long journey, this epic journey from all around the world. New York to London to Africa, you know, to Australia, China, fighting these cults all across the world. And that was great, you know? And that you get a feeling of thing. And if you play a long campaign that's pre-published, you can then go online and swap stories with people about what happened to you in this campaign. You know, how did you handle this? Did you all die against the Shoggoth?
You can do good character progression as well. Like, you know, you can start off with your character as the totally green rookie, you know, scared of absolutely everything, to, you know, kind of going, wait a minute, we've been doing this campaign for 2 or 3 years now, and like that much time, in-game time has passed as well. My character's been in multiple combats, you know, been hospitalized, patched up the squad who have had bits blown off them and everything, and, you know, they're now a hardened veteran, and you've kind of gone through the whole role-playing sphere from the whole side of that, you know, to from being completely green to being grizzled, you know. Like, there's a lot of that as well, and you can get a real sense of camaraderie in the party. Like, as much as I enjoyed Pathfinder Society, and as it happens, it's a small enough group that we're playing with now at the moment that most sessions your character will be with the same characters that you've played with a lot of the times as well. Not quite the same as when you're running a long-running game, you know? Like, when you're running a long-running game, there is a party. There is an adventuring group that's there together. And you know how they work in combat, and you know how they work out of combat. Yeah,
absolutely. You gel as a unit as well, and you actually can develop quite a bit of system mastery in a game. So if you go back to play that game again, you're like, yeah, I know how this one works. I know how to run this card. I know how to play this. And you get to actually learn a system in and out. And that can be useful in other contexts. If someone goes, how do I do this? Or anyone got any advice for this? You're like, yeah, I played a level 20 barbarian. I can tell you everything about what's good and what's bad. This is great. This is great. This is terrible. Don't take this. I never used it. You know, and you'd have a set of experience that you can then apply. It's good. You get to see the full gamut of the game. You might develop very strong opinions on game balance, or you may kind of give up on game balance and say this is impossible for anyone to run this game long term. That's good. That's experience, and it can inform you then later on when you're selecting a game. Go, God, no, we can't run a long one campaign in that one. It breaks level 7. Let's do something else, you know, and that's good. You get to separate the wheat from the chaff in mechanics and in system, and you also get to know your other players quite well. And that can breed a thing where you go back and you go, yeah, I played for a year with him. He was grand. I played with a year for her. She was great. I played with a year for him. I am never playing with this person again. Drove me crazy. So you actually cultivate a group of people who you'll play long term with because it's okay. You can handle it. The group dynamics are fine. You can deal with their little annoying habits. They can deal with your little annoying habits, and it's okay.
Can that be intimidating for new players to crack into?
Oh God, yeah. Like coming into it's like joining anything where we got 5 years of in jokes and backstory. Sorry, we'll try and fold you in.
Yeah. Oh, I brought my mate Joe to the poker game and it didn't work out.
We got 5 years. Oh, you're coming to join our Alpha 4 campaign. Have you ever played Alpha 4 again before? No. Okay, this is going to be a learning experience for you. Sit there, stay quiet for a while. You'll figure it out. But we'll try and explain things as it goes.
Lurk more.
Well, it can be a bit impenetrable. You're like, there was a bit where we were playing L5 War for the first time with someone new had come into the game, and his name was Pete, and Pete had played a bit of D&D, a bit of the stuff, was very excited to play Alpha War, and we found there was something dodgy happened in a room in a castle, and we were like, okay, we need to figure out what happened there, and we need to figure out what's going on. And Pete was playing a Shigenja, like a cleric wizard, and he goes, Grad, turns invisible, walks into the room, finds a bunch of incriminating evidence, picks it up, walks out of the room, turns invisible, says, look what I found. We go, that's nice. That's useless. And he goes, well, but it proves this is happening. And they go, yeah, but evidence doesn't matter in Rakugani courts, only testimony matters. That needs to be discovered there by someone higher rank than her so he can testify that it was there. So you need to turn invisible again, sneak back into that room, put it back. There's a chain of evidence required, but it's not a chain of evidence. It's just that the Lord has to say that happened. And he was like, the face fell. We're like, yeah, sorry, man. This is how it works. Back in you go.
Yeah. I do think there is something to be said that long campaigns tend to be more very aspirational. Everyone plans to have one, but very often, particularly if you're playing with a lot of newer people, it is a lot easier to run into the 20-session campaign. We're going to power through start level 3, end level 10, or we're just going to do this one set of modules or whatever. That could be a lot easier for a newer player because then it's a less of a commitment. That's one of the things. It's like a longer campaign is a commitment, and that's both a issue with the campaign, but also sort of a strength because then once you're committed to something, it becomes easier for you to justify making sure you're always free on Tuesday nights, or you have the calendar set up so every second Thursday, I'm only doing this game.
Well, I think that's something that there are some do's and don'ts if you do want to get a long campaign going. So I think you probably want to do a couple of test sessions, make sure that there's a good rapport amongst your players. I think you'd want to make sure, like you said, that it's on every second Tuesday or every second Thursday. Send out a calendar invite, and that's what it is. Because I think if you just have it happening, I mean, it can work, and absolutely, I know gaming groups that have been gaming for years that are just like, whatever Saturday people are free will do it, and they might not play for 3 months, and then they might play every week for a month, But I found it's typically a lot easier if it's just that's what happens. If for whatever reason, so me, how I tend to do it is that, I would aim for maybe 5 players, and that if we got 3 players together, if I got 3 players on a night, I'll run. At the moment, we kind of have a core of 4 players, and 3 players there will run. That's absolutely fine. 1 player missing. Got 2 players missing. It's a little bit dicey, But 3 is certainly a good number to run. So have that. You don't necessarily have to have everybody there. Maybe there's a big end of chapter boss coming up or something, and you kind of need all hands on deck. But most of the time, you can get by with shaving off a player, maybe 2, if they just don't happen to be there. And what I found as well is those weeks where you can't get together, try and schedule an alternate. So either schedule an alternate game or play a board game or do, I know certainly the gaming group I have every other Friday, Warfup is every second Thursday, and then the other Friday playing with another group. at the moment, fellow host Brian, or former host Brian, is running us through Destroyer of Worlds, the Alien campaign. Any week we can't get together, we hop on and play some random game on Steam. Among Us, Deep Rock Galactic, something. And it's just to have something happening that night, because if you leave a gap, people will fill it.
That's the thing. I would say that if you're running a long-term campaign, you have to have a fixed day and a fixed time, and you have to run it. There will be weeks you feel low energy. You have weeks where you're feeling tough, where you're very busy. Missing sessions through the life stuff is fine, but if it happens too much, your game will break up. So you've got to be willing to do that. You will also sometimes have player attrition. People have to drop out. They've got to move away. They've got to do something else. Something's come up. Can you shift today? We can't shift today. Okay, well, then I can't play anymore. And I know sometimes I've been in a game where I'm like, wow, I wish we had another player. Just because it's less load on the three who are there. There's maybe a bit more time for someone to go, actually, I'm just going to quiet for half an hour and I'm just going to listen to what other people are doing stuff, and then I'll come back in. And it'd be good, but it's harder in a long-running campaign on-ramp a player back in.
It is.
Because you're really coming in the middle of this. Sorry, come on in, I guess.
Particularly if it's one of the iconic ones.
Yeah.
Because if I was to say to you, let's watch this iconic movie trilogy and I want you to start on the second or third movie, you'd be like, if it's just some random adventure path, that you don't really, okay, whatever, Extinction Course, I've heard good things, but if you were asking me if I wanted to jump in on book 3 or 4 of that, I'd be like, yeah, sure, whatever. But if it's like The Enemy Within, or, Murder on the Orient Express, or like one of the long-running kind of, and really kind of famed campaigns, I'd be like, well, I kind of want to play that from the start,
It's difficult to recruit. If you are doing a pre-published one of the places you can recruit somebody who's played it before and is willing to play it again.
Sure.
You'd be like, yeah, sure, I'll fold in. Tell me what happened roughly. I know the major beats, or I've played it before. Okay, so we've had a good chinwag about that one. Covered some good content. If any of the issues raised in this podcast have affected you or your family, please contact us at all our usual places: our Discord, party@theadventuringparty.net, our Twitter, our Facebook, wherever you're interested in social media, you'll probably find us there. We don't have a gram yet because we're a podcast. Why would we have an Instagram? But other than that, you'll find us pretty much everywhere. This party's over.
You've been listening to The Adventuring Party. We're a ragtag collective of desperate souls, striving for truth in a world of tabletop gone mad. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter. You can email us at party@theadventuringparty.net. Although, between you and me, the best place to track us down is Discord. Check the show notes for a link. This podcast released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike version 3 license, which is like free, but with extra steps. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next week.
Are you aiming for, one of the podcasts where they're discussing really, dark or morose topic like suicide or sexual abuse or something? Because that sounds like what you're going for. That
is the tone I'm going for in a slightly mocking way, because people do take some of this stuff very seriously, and I always thought, yeah, let's do it. If any issues raised in this podcast have affected you,
sure.
All my campaigns have gone too long,